I will pop right back in immediately.
Sounds great. Thank you, Brianna.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy, everybody.
Thanks, guys. All right, appreciate you all being here. I'm going to do this in 3 different acts. The first act, getting representation. The second act, working with your representation. And then the third act, really selling your next project, pitches, OWAs, and assignments. As Brianna was saying, I'm going to take questions after each act. I'll start by telling you a little bit about me. I grew up in Boston, played sports my whole life, and went to Villanova University to play baseball and study finance. Never took a screenwriting class in my life, was there playing baseball, figured that I would play baseball and then maybe retire and trade some stocks. And I actually got hurt when I was playing early on, and for the first time in my life just had a ton of free time on my hands and was able to go and study abroad in Italy, which will come back later. Studied abroad in Italy, caught up on some reading, and came back from Italy with a story to tell. Started writing for the school newspaper, and my senior year ended up writing a book that started as a short story. Wrote this book and sent it out to some people across the country, some editors in New York, checked it out, and they said, you know, this is cool, but do you know how to write a screenplay? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. You know, Google searched, you know, how do you write a screenplay? What is Final Draft? And really just taught myself how to write screenplays reading old Shane Black scripts. I was a big action thriller movie fan growing up. You know, the classics, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, also Bad Boys. Just grew up on action thrillers. And so I taught myself just by reading old scripts, just any script that I could find, which I think is really the best advice that I could give anyone who's starting out, is to just read as many scripts as you can get your hands on. So I turned my book into a screenplay. You know, the people that were reading it said, you know, you seem to have an ear for dialogue. Like, why don't you come out? So I went out from Boston. I went back to Boston after college and worked a couple jobs back there, saved up some money, went out, met with some people in LA, and started getting some attention for this script, and decided to move to LA. And that was my first script. It got optioned. Nothing ever really came of it. It was basically Superbad with music. It was about a group of guys from Boston who start a band after one of them is broken up with, and they use it to meet girls and, you know, get famous basically. And nothing happened to it, but it got me my start out here. Got me to meet some executive, meet some assistants around town. And yeah, so I moved out here and started bartending and just writing on the side. And we can get into some of the different jobs you guys are doing on the side, the best way to network, best way to get to meet people out here, best way to get your script read. And after that, I think we're going to jump into Act 1. So getting that manager and the agent. As you can hear from my story, it all starts with the script. And people will come to me and they'll ask me, you know, what should I be writing? I have this idea. You know, to me, the best advice that I can give you, it's so competitive in LA. There are so many people now with, you know, in the old days, obviously you would have to send a script in through mail. You know, now that we can electronically send everything, you can write anywhere around the world. And so the best advice I can give you for writing that great script is write something you're an expert on, something that nobody else can write about but you. You know, the old adage is write what you know. My addendum to that would be write what you know better than anybody else. There are obviously cases where people have, you know, written scripts where they weren't an expert on it, or it's just a world that they were fascinated by. But if you were looking for the best way in where you can be a voice of authority, I would say to write something you're an expert on. For instance, my first script that became my calling card, which hopefully all of you will have someday soon, it was called The Gunsmith. It was a Boston crime story. When I grew up in Boston, you know, when I was in middle school, I was hanging around with a bunch of Boston knuckleheads, getting into a lot of trouble. And basically, a lot of the kids that I grew up with, you know, there was a fine line between cop and criminal. Most of the kids that I grew up with went on and they were in and out of prison, or they became cops. And so I really wanted to explore that line. And so it was right around the time that John Wick had come out. And so my script was easily pitchable as John Wick meets the town. So when I started sending it out to people, I was able to open up with, hey, I'm from Boston. You know, I really wanted to write a love letter to my city. These are some of the guys that I grew up with. You know, these are some of the true stories that I heard growing up, things that I was kind of adjacent to, and really just made it a lot easier for my reps to sell me when I was first going out. It's like, hey, there's this guy from Boston. He's got this cool crime thriller script. It's inspired by John Wick and the town and Heat. And so it just made, you know, my whole story here will be about what makes you unique, you know, what makes you an expert, what can really help you break through, because there are plenty of people with great scripts. There are plenty of people with great stories. It's really about what people can know you as to keep you getting work to become a working writer. So as we move on to getting your reps, as I'm sure some of you know, but I will just kind of break it down the way that I learned it, the difference between finding a manager versus finding an agent. So in finding a manager is looking for a voice, right? Shane Black taught me when I was growing up that you could talk to the reader without talking to the audience. You know, if you've ever read a Shane Black script, he has an easily identifiable style where you can flip to any page in the script and you can just tell, okay, this is a Shane Black script. You know, so I think that having that unique voice, having that style, you know, being a professional, not on page 15, not on page 30, but on page 1. You know, I worked on that page 1 for The Gunsmith for months, making sure that that first page, as soon as somebody opened it up, they would know that they were in a world unlike they'd ever been in before. So with the manager, you're looking for that strong voice. And with an agent, it's a little bit trickier. Finding an agent usually comes via a manager or a producer. An agent sometimes, even if the script isn't perfect, if it's a great idea, sometimes an agent will take you on because it's something they can make money off of. They see this amazing high concept idea and they know that they can sell it. Maybe you're an idea factory and you're going to be able to crank out these ideas. They'll be able to bring in another writer to polish it, but you can have that amazing idea. What we're looking for ideally is the intersection of those two, right? This amazing, unique voice of authority, something you're an expert on, that is also high concept and sellable. That is really the sweet spot of getting you a manager and an agent. The question when I sit down with people, when I do these talks, the question that I get most is, well, how do I contact them? I don't know any managers. I don't know any agents. So I would break that down into if you live in LA versus if you live outside LA. So if you're in LA, it's a little bit easier. And anybody who wants to do this, I would highly recommend moving to LA, because regardless of where you are in LA, you're going to bump into people from the business, right? So once you're here in LA, you're networking, you can meet people anywhere. I once met a producer at a boxing gym who said that he hadn't read a great action script in a while. And I had just finished writing my second script. And I said, well, you know, I write action. If you'd love to check it out, I'd love to send it to you. So just being here, getting to meet people, you meet a friend and their friend is an assistant at a management company, is an assistant at an agency. And just being here, you get to meet people in the industry that can really help you out. And that's really how I was able to get my first manager. Was once you're out here and you're meeting people, you start trading scripts, you know, like, hey, I'll check out your script if you check out mine. And you hopefully will develop a reputation around your group of friends as the best writer in the group. So that when one of your friends, you know, is at the office and the agent that they work for is looking for a script, you could be like, my friend Matt has this cool Boston crime thriller, you know, so you start to be able to be the topic of conversation at parties. And when people are talking, they know that you are a talented writer and you have a new script that you're working on. If you're outside LA, it's a little bit more challenging, but, you know, I would recommend contests, you know, some of the better contests. Obviously people know, you know, the Nickel. I actually started out with, you know, with placing in a contest. There are some websites now, like, you know, the Blacklist tracking board. You know, really when you live outside LA, you need to just exhaust all your resources to try and get your material out there, to get coverage. And it's really just a numbers game. It's just about reaching out to as many people as possible, getting your script in as many hands as possible, and getting that bite, getting people to read your work. Now, I would love to dive into just ways to contact them. I feel like that's another question that I get is, I want to email, this manager, this producer. Don't bother emailing any agents. You'll just get the bounce back. How do I go about talking to these managers and to these producers to get them to read my work? The best way you can do it is that strong subject line, that strong opening line. Really treat it like the headline of a story. When I was first starting out, guys, there's a million different ways you can break in. I can tell you what I've done and what my path to success has been. So really that's the best way that I feel like I can help you guys out is, for me, I had placed in a contest. So my subject line was simply, semi-finalist in XXX contest. These people are getting hundreds, sometimes thousands of emails a day. And it's really just about breaking through that clutter. How do you get people to click open on your email? So, you can put that you have placed in a contest, that you've gotten positive coverage from one of these websites. You can place that you won your film festival. Whatever you can do, as opposed to hey, or the title of your script, something that is actionable, something that is going to make people say like, okay, this person doesn't just want to be my client. This person is doing something to get me to look at them to be one of my new clients. So you have that strong subject, you get them to open the email. And then when you are approaching it, you really want to keep it as short as possible. Again, the volume of the emails that these people are getting is staggering. So, you keep it casual. Hi, my name is Matt Duffett. I'm a semifinalist in XXX contest. The script is a Boston crime thriller. Think John Wick meets The Town. Here's the log line. Guys, never send the script. Never attach the script. You're going to have no luck getting people to hit you back at that point. Just put in the log line and then just say, hey, I would love for you to check out the script. Let me know if you want to check it out. Just keep it short, sweet, very casual. One of the biggest problems that I see when people are trying to get managers and producers to open their work is they just go over the top. They can just be too aggressive with these things. You really need to be patient. It's a numbers game. The best way to not worry about getting a response from manager X is to just be reaching out to people at all times. If you have, just throw as many things as you can at the wall and hope that something will stick. So another way to get in is a referral. Another way that I started out is I sent a script I was in LA. I met a girl who was working as an assistant at a production company. She liked the script that I wrote, and she checked it out, gave it to her team, and they did coverage on the script. The coverage was strong. And so I started sending just a little snippet of the coverage to managers being like, hey, somebody checked out this script. It's this reputable production company. I got some cool coverage. I think if more producers check this thing out, we might be able to move this thing. Would you be willing to check out my script? So you're really just looking for any sort of actionable ammo that you guys can use to get people to check your stuff out. So a referral is great. I would be willing to bet that all of you out there, you have somebody in your family, a friend that you went to school with, a long lost cousin. There has to be somebody out there who knows someone in LA. And you really can't be shy about that, because it is really a who do you know kind of business, where if you have an opportunity to reach out and get introduced to somebody, use it and make sure that when you are getting introduced, when you do have that shot, that's something, is some people put so much energy into getting somebody to read something, getting somebody to open their email, but the script doesn't match up, So when you get that shot, make sure that your script is in good enough shape that you are ready to deliver. So again, networking, a quick point, people ask me about side jobs. Quickly, I was bartending, it was miserable. I hated it. Even though I got to do some really cool parties, I bartended some private events, some celebrity weddings. It was really cool, but I was just miserable because, I really wanted to be writing for a living. So if you are in LA, I'd say that there are two different paths you can take. You can get a side job where you're making enough money to get by, but you're saving your creative energy, which I was doing with bartending. I was able to write all day, bartend, sometimes come back from bartending at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and just keep writing. The other path is working in the industry, which is amazing. You can, grow your network, but at the same time, you're working terrible hours, you're reading other scripts, and you rarely have time to work on your own stuff. So you have to decide what is best for you. I think that there are benefits and, some pratfalls with both. So you just really need to decide what you're working on. The one exception would be TV. I'd say that if you have an opportunity, you write a cool pilot, and you're able to get it out to some people, and you have an opportunity to grab a TV writer's assistant's job, I would grab it. I would say that that is the best assistant job you can have, because the track record of people working as writer's assistants in TV going on to be staff writers and showrunners is great. So if you're working on the TV side, I would say that a TV writer's assistant job is a great find. As I was saying before, really just when you're sending out these initial query letters, these emails, it's just a numbers game, guys. Like, you can't be afraid of getting rejected. Rejection, even for working screenwriters, for the best screenwriters, it happens. You send out a spec on a Friday, on Monday, 19 out of 20 places are going to pass, but you're just looking for that one person. You're looking for that one manager, that one agent, that one producer who's willing to take a shot on you. Follow-up, I'd say that the follow-up is also crucial. If you don't hear from a manager and agent within the first week, you can follow up after a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. Even better if you have new information. If you were a semifinalist when you sent the first email and now you're a finalist, you look like you're continuing to hustle, you're continuing to work, and you are really showing this manager, agent, producer that you are going to continue to work once they sign you. So really don't be annoying. Don't be a pest. We all know what it's like getting those text emails that we don't want to deal with. So just have some tact, be patient, do the right thing. And just when you follow up, hopefully you have some new information to share, or you can just say, hey, I noticed that you're working on this. I noticed that, something about that. So it's targeted. It doesn't feel like it is just a blind submission. You really want to target these things as much as possible. You see that they worked, with a client who went to your college, or whatever it is that you can be more specific and just really pop out of the pile. That's really going to be the best way to get somebody to notice you. Okay, so let's say the email works, they open up the email, you get a response, right? You send them that great script that you're an expert on, that you've been working on, and they love it. They want to meet you. You come to LA, you're in LA, you go to, lunch, and you're meeting with them, and the first thing that they're going to ask you is what? What are you working on next? And it is the question that I get from executives, management, agents, most of all, is what are you working on next? I see so many people who spend so much time working on that first script that they don't put any time into the second script. And that is one of the biggest mistakes that I see, writers who are just starting out make, is you really have to continue working. While you're sending out that first script, it should be done. And you should be moving on to the second script, because the chances are when you meet with an agent, you meet with a manager, there's a chance they're not going to be able to sell that script. And even if they are, they want to make sure that it's not a fluke. When I was first signing with my manager and agent, they wanted to see 2 scripts. They wanted to make sure that I had a voice and it was consistent, and the first script wasn't the only thing that I was capable of. So you should really be working on that second script right now And really, the advice that I got when I was first starting out was write 3 scripts a year, at least, at the bare minimum. Write 3 scripts a year, whether they be originals or assignments or things that you're working on based on IP, whatever it is, you should really be cranking out material and not waiting for that call, because when the call does come, you want to have just a bankroll of material that you're going to be able to use. So let's see, we got that. We got the scripts. The manager and the agent love it. Everybody's really excited. You have this hot new spec. They sign you. Congratulations. All the hard work is paid off. The emails have paid off. And now you are moving on to the next phase of signing with a manager and an agent. And so Act 2 is going to be working with your reps to really go and start talking to producers, working on your pitches, working on how you're going to establish yourself as the next great writer in town. So if it's cool with you guys, I'd like to take some questions now. I think we got a couple here. Brianna popping in.
I'm popping in because you sort of touched on this, but this was the question that was emailed to me.
Cool.
So yeah, you touched on it, but I'm going to read it because she emailed me.
Awesome.
At what time after how many scripts written do you suggest seeking representation? I have 1 feature in development, a second one doing feedback rounds, a third one will be finished in a couple months. I also have 3 treatments also for features. Almost all are dramas with 1 family tale.
That sounds great. That sounds great. It sounds like she is definitely ready to seek representation. My best advice would be to include whatever the best project that she is working on would be, to include that in the subject line, in the body of the email, to let somebody know, here is where I'm at. Think of it like a first date, like put your best foot forward, wear your best outfit, like smile, do everything you can do to get these people on your side. So that would be my best advice. You have to understand yourself, and it's something that I will talk about a little bit in Act 2, but having that group of people around you, that trusted circle of friends who can read your material, maybe some from the industry, some not from the industry, but who say like, this is the one, like this is the one you should be going out with. This is the best thing you've written. As soon as you get to that point, you have to know yourself well enough to say that this is the one that if I do get the chance that this manager or agent wants to check something out, that I don't blow that opportunity, Don't want something more than you're willing to work for it, would be my advice. Don't want something more than you're willing to work for it.
I like that. Cool. And just as a reminder to everyone, this was just someone had emailed me before. So continue to put your stuff in the Q&A box and I'll go back to my hiding spot now.
All right, cool. All right. When you do, from Betty Sullivan, says, when you do a query, does using a referral name of another producer help, or is it not done? Betty, it's a tricky one, but I would say the best advice would be to talk to the producer and say, hey, I really appreciate you taking a look at my material. Would it be okay? I'm looking for a manager or an agent. Would it be okay if I mentioned that we spoke and you enjoyed my script, because I would love to take the next step in my career? That really solves both issues, where you let the producer know that you're looking for a manager, and you also want to make it sure that it's cool that when you go out to these managers and agents, that the producer isn't going to be blindsided and say like, hey, I was just, being polite about that script. So I think that that's also great for another reason, because it could spark the conversation of the producer saying, oh, I didn't know that you didn't have a manager and agent. Let me introduce you to my friend over at X company. That was another way that I got my first agents was, I met a really cool manager. He sent it out to a couple of producers. A lot of buzz started coming along with the project. And one of the producers reached out to my current agent and said, hey, we love this script. You should really be working with this writer before another agent scoops him up. So I would definitely say, talk to the producer, say, hey, I'm looking for representation. Would it be okay if I reached out? And I think that covers both bases, and I think could really put you in a great situation, especially if the producer really digs your material, and especially if it's a reputable producer. I would say, make sure that this producer has credits, and that, think of it like referring a friend of yours to another friend. It's like, is this somebody that I want my name to be associated with as much as the reverse, right? So just make sure it's a reputable producer and somebody that can really help you when reaching out to an agent or a manager. So that's great. Great question, Betty. Thank you. Let's see. Yes, well-known producer. That's terrific. Great. I can't seem to scroll down on these questions here. I got the answer live. That's what it is. All right, that's done. Brianna, sorry, I can't scroll down here.
Did you get it? Oh, here, let me get rid of
I got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
I got it.
I'm going to clear some for you, and then, okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Clint Williams writes, for cold queries, should you focus on smaller management companies or bigger companies? That's a great question. Thank you. Thank you, Clint. I would say that to target all of them. I think that it's really going to come down to, let's say that you get into a position where you have a few managers who would like to read your material or meet you. It's about fit. My manager in LA is one of my best friends in town. You really want to find somebody who understands you. The worst case scenario is you've been waiting to get a manager your entire life. You've been working for this, and you find out that you just don't fit with this manager or this agent, where you just have a different outlook on your career. Maybe you're somebody who needs a little bit more attention. Maybe you need to just fire off a question, and it helps if they can get right back to you. Some managers are like that. Some agents are like that. Some managers aren't going to be able to get right back to you because they have so many clients, but you're going to be able to have a weekly touch base every Wednesday, let's say. So you really need to figure out what the fit is best. And so I would look at those smaller companies and some of the bigger companies, see what kind of writers they rep. If they rep an established writer, that maybe you could come in and be a junior writer to that established writer, maybe that's a good fit. But my advice would, honestly, when you're first starting out, I targeted everybody. I targeted anybody who would, take my email, take my call, check out my script. So I say go out to as many as you can, but make sure at the end of the day that it's a decent fit, and that this is somebody who would be willing to take you on, and your script would fit with what they enjoy and what they'd like to do. Let's see. Mary Robbins asks, you mentioned the second script showed your voice. Does that mean you are not only using a unique voice, but including writing the same genre? Yes. So it's something, again, that I will cover a little bit more in Act 2, but it's a great question, Mary. Thank you. So I would say that you need to have your voice in your first script, in the first thing that you have. Before the script that got me noticed, I had written 4 or 5 scripts before, I had met with another manager. The first 2 things that I ever wrote as scripts, I got a little bit of attention. I had some managers, but nothing sold. I had a few things optioned, but really the first thing that got me my manager today and my agent today was my voice. You could tell on page 1. And so I would say another great bit of advice that I would pass on to you is spend the first 5 years of your career building a brand. Building this brand, and then spend the next 5 years breaking yourself out of that brand. So it's something I'll cover in Act 2, but this idea of branding, where, as I talked about with your script, just being an expert. You want to be an expert on your first script, your second script. You really want to be able to show that your voice can have this authoritative form on the page, so you look like you are the most qualified person to tell this story. So my first script was a Boston action crime thriller. My second script was a firefighter action movie like Top Gun, but with firefighters. It was like a coming of age story, but still in that same world of muscular, this idea of brotherhood, an idea of, your work family as your surrogate family, a lot of the same themes. similar characters, this similar vibe, because what you want to do to become a working writer is be the guy or girl that people can look to for this. And it's something that I'll get into in the assignments and the rewrites category. Is you become the expert by showing these scripts, and then people look to you to tell these similar types of stories. I have just as varied interests as everybody. I grew up loving comedy movies, but I found my voice with writing action thrillers with a bit of dark comedy. And so I continued to write that for my first script, second script, third script. So I think that that's the best way to be branded, because then your manager knows how to sell you, your agent knows how to sell you, and producers know who you are. They can say, okay, we have this cool piece of IP, this cool heist story. Oh, we have to get Matt Duffett. We've been wanting to work with him. We dig his stuff. Like, let's get him to write this for us. So Mary, I hope that answers your question. Bill Osinski asks, I have a strong portfolio of IP-based projects based on my years as a journalist. Should I be emphasizing this as my strength as opposed to being totally focused on one project? Well, Bill, I think that there are two different ways you can go about this. I'd say when you have IP, which is as important today as it has ever been, I think if you wanted to take this IP and turn them into films or TV series, that's a producer's job in theory, where you have this IP, you're trying to get it set up at different places. If you would like to write these things, then I would find the best piece of IP that you have. Whatever the best piece of IP that you have, you are obviously an expert as a journalist. So you check box one, right? And I would put that right in your email. I would say, I've worked for X years as a journalist. The thing that I covered most is this. I own the IP based on an article. I think it would make a great film or TV series. Would love to send you the article. And I also have a script based on it if you do. But otherwise, you'd want to have that script. Otherwise, that's really a producer's job of getting that IP out into the world.
Oh, sorry. I just popped in because you froze, but then you came back right as I popped in. But I'm going to go now because I think it's all good.
All right. Are we good, guys?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Okay, great.
Bill, so that's great. And having IP is super valuable. I would continue to put that out into the world. I would take your best article, write something based on that, and then use that. That's something that I'm working on currently, where I noticed that there were a lot of comics that were being sold into TV shows, into films. And so I wanted to write a comic. And so I figure if all this IP is selling, why not write the IP and then sell it off so you control both revenue streams, really. So I think that that's a great idea, Bill. I think you should take that IP and really take that, turn it into a cool, kick-ass kind of story, and start sending that out to managers, agents, and producers. And we have Chaz coming in with, let's say you have a few good scripts, some contests, and are ready to start seeking agency representation. And where do you find the contact information for agents and managers? Okay, good question. I would personally start with managers. Agents, you are not going to be able to break through the agency firewall. They're just going to bounce back to you. So I would say to target managers. When I first started out, I went on IMDb Pro. I think one of the best things you can do for your career is to read the trades, read what's going on in the industry. If you have a heist script that you love and you see that there's a producer who likes making heist movies, then, check out sending them something, IMDb Pro and Done Deal Pro. Great. Clint Williams jumping in there. So yeah, I'd say IMDb Pro, Done Deal Pro. There are a couple other services you can use that can list those things. And, if they're making action movies, if they're making rom-coms, if they're making comedies, you'd want to approach it that way. Say, hey, I noticed that you had great success with Superbad. I have a Superbad story, but with music. would love to send you the script. So I think that that's a great way to go about getting those. And I would recommend reading the, Hollywood Reporter, reading different Vulture, any of these things you can get your hands on just to know what's going on out there. And it's something that I'll cover when we're going into the next specs and the things that you should be working on next. Stephen Potts, thank you. I appreciate the compliment, Stephen. And tips on getting representation for writers outside the U.S. And I appreciate you liking the shirt. Thank you. Honestly, I think the best way to do it, you can still target. I know my manager has clients from outside the U.S., from around the world. So you can still target managers and agents, or managers really. The best way to get an agent is to be introduced via a manager or a producer. So I would say the best way to do it is you can still target these managers, still target producers, but again, we're opening with that strong headline. We want to have placed in a contest. We want to have gotten great coverage on one of these websites. You want to have something that you can trade, right? The best way to get a manager is to have something that they can sell, because at the end of the day, they have somebody that they're answering to, and you want to make them look as good as possible. So if they find the next amazing talented writer, you're making them look great, So if you are doing well in these contests, and if you are doing well on these different services, then you're going to be able to reach out to them. And a lot of the time, why it comes back to writing the great script and being an expert with this script, they're going to find you. A lot of managers and producers are scouring the Nickel Fellowship for clients. So hopefully that answers your question, Stephen. James says, impressed with your discipline. Do you have a preferred database for research and emails? Yeah, IMDb Pro. The discipline is, that should really be the first thing that they teach people is you have to hustle. I mean, I don't know if you know this statistic, but I found this fascinating, but there are as many people in the Writers Guild as there are in the NBA. There's about 3,000 writers in the Writers Guild and 3,000 people in the NBA. So really, you're trying to play a professional sport. So if you want to do this, you really need to be willing to hustle. When I was starting out, I moved to LA and I was bartending. I left my business background behind, came out here, and I just started bartending so I could write every single day, 6-7 days a week, could just write all day, bartend at night, sometimes keep writing early in the morning. It's, you really need to want it, and you need to be able to handle the rejection. But the best thing you can do is again, have that cool script, have people that are reading your work, continuing to improve as a writer, because if you're doing this for long enough, you're going to get a shot. Like, somebody is going to read your material, and if it's good enough, you're going to sign. Like, you are going to sign with a manager or an agent, I promise you. If you're doing this for long enough and you're hustling and you're writing great material that everybody you send it to loves, somebody is going to take a shot at you. So if you can do this, and if you can put in the hard work, there is a light at the end of the tunnel where you can do this for a living. So I hope that answers your question. Martin says, great first act. Can you talk about developing an authentic voice in a particular genre, making clear that thing is your comedy or comedy horror? Martin, awesome question, dude. I would say if you're going to do comedy, a general rule is 3 laughs a page. You need to have 3 laughs on every page. So if people are reading your stuff and they're not laughing, then comedy isn't for you. I think that you really need to hone your joke writing skills, that if you're going to do comedy, you really want to be getting laughs on every page. That would be the key. And I think as far as establishing your voice, that's tricky. You know it when you see it. It's hard to tell somebody how to find a voice. The way that I did it, the way that I would recommend, is find your favorite movie, find your favorite TV series, and find those scripts. Get your hands on those scripts. I loved Shane Black movies. I loved Bad Boys. I loved Seven. Those are the scripts that I read. I read every Andrew Kevin Walker script that I could find. I read every Shane Black script. James Cameron, sneaky great screenwriter. I read his True Lies script, his Point Break script. All of them awesome scripts. So if you want to find your voice, my advice would be to read as many scripts as you can of the movies that you love and use some of the tricks that they use. You know, with Shane Black, he would try to just tell a great story and to entertain people. You have to realize that these people are, they're reading hundreds and hundreds of scripts a week. So you really need to give them a ride. That's how I always base my scripts on, is giving them the best experience, making them have a great time. So I will be more conversational in the slug lines. I'll write jokes or darkly comic things in the slug lines just to get people to lean in so that they're like, oh, I need to continue reading this, right? At the end of the day, all you want is for people to turn the page. So that's really something, is I would check out some of these scripts and just keep reading, read everything you can get your hands on. If you find out that a new script had sold, do some digging, find that script, read it, see what you can soak up for it, and just find a way to make it your own. Awesome questions, guys. I'm going to jump into Act 2, and this is working with your reps, right? So we have this hot new spec. It's either a feature or a TV series, and your reps are all excited. They send it out, and you have all of these producers that want to meet with you. We call this the bottled water tour. So you're going to go out and start meeting with all these different producers. And let me just close that out, guys. Sorry. Okay, great. So you're going to go on the bottled water tour, where you're going to go out and you're going to meet all of these cool producers. And they have read your stuff. They want to meet with you. It's amazing. It's everything you've worked for and you've wanted. You get the manager's assistant, the agent's assistant sends you the drive-on information at Paramount. You're geeking out. You're looking around the studio. It's amazing, right? So what do you do after you have that cool script and you want to go and meet with these producers? I really want to take you guys inside the world of what it's like as a working writer. So you go in and you meet with these people. I think the number one key is passion. You have to be in there, be passionate, have some energy, because let's face it, they're going to meet a ton of other writers just like you, and you want to make an impression on them because there are new great specs going out every week. So you want to get in there, you want to have passion. They love making movies, they love making TV series. You want to show why you love writing, why you love making movies, and why you want to make TV series as well. So another tip that I can give you guys is, when you get to that point, when you're meeting producers, even if it's just a one-off, even if you send it to one producer, you go in and you meet with this producer, know your origin story. So when I opened up today, I have an easily digestible soundbite about my origin story, about how I ended up in LA. Grew up playing sports, never took a screenwriting class, studying finance, got hurt, study abroad, started writing, wrote a book, moved out to LA. Whatever it is that makes your story unique is what you want to put forward first. Again, it's about being an expert. It's about being unique. It's about how do you stand out in this sea of millions trying to do this. So you have your origin story, the way that you would describe yourself when you meet a new friend. You'd be able to talk about your background. Even better if you can tie something to the script they have just read, right? So when I go in after sending out The Gunsmith, people are like, oh, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Boston. Can't you tell, or did I leave my accent at the bar? You have these things ready so that people say, oh, well, that makes perfect sense. This is someone who has been and spent time with the people in Boston and spent time living in Boston, right? So hopefully the script that you write, you will have a personal anecdote about how you decided to write this script so that they are able to connect the dots. So when you blow them away in the meeting and they talk to the vice president of production, they can say, Matt wrote this cool Boston crime story. He's from Boston. He gets it. I think we should be making this film in the summer. So have the passion, go in there, You know, what makes you different? And also, just like you were sitting down in coffee with someone else, like ask them about their journey. You'll be shocked at how often you have these similarities that pop up. You know, you want to ask them how they ended up in LA. Like, did they study film? You know, did they play sports? You know, you have your talking points. Like for me, my talking points were always sports, travel, food. You know, I could talk for days about different places I've traveled to, different restaurants I wanted to eat at, can talk sports with a bunch of people. That's how my manager and I hit it off, was talking about the NBA finals. So having these things that you can talk about in ways that you can connect. Because to be honest, when you go out on these meetings, you're not going to sell the script to every producer you meet with. So don't worry about winning the job per se. Worry about winning the room. Don't try to win the job. Try to win the room so that you can be somebody that they want to spend 6 months developing a film with, a year developing a TV series with. Somebody who's a good person that they want to hang out with, that they can talk with, because when you start developing these projects with people, it gets tense. There are deadlines. There are things that come up that are out of their control, and they want to know that you get it, you understand it, you're cool, you're not going to be, you know, a jerk about things, and they can work with you on a daily basis for the next year. So you're able to talk with them about your story, you hear their story, and you're able to connect, because once you start going out on these meetings, these producers are going to reach out to your managers and agents and say, I just met Matt, great guy, can totally see why you signed him. It's going to make your agents and managers happy, it makes the producers happy, and it makes you look good, because now your managers and agents have the confidence to keep sending you out on all of these meetings. So a typical follow-up, just like when we were sending out the script, you want to follow up with them and you want to talk about, you know, without being so direct about it, but you want to make an impression on them for future business, because you're trying to win the room, you're trying to make a great impression on them, and you want to set something up for the OWAs that they have, the rewrite gigs that they have, the assignments that they have, the IP that they have, that you are a great fit for that, which all again ties back to your own brand, where they know you as this type of writer, and we know we can count on you to deliver for this property. And so you're building this network of people who enjoy your stuff. And a way that I guess I can kind of hammer this home is, I went out, you know, you have to be willing to open up to these people, share why you are writing, share where you're doing all this. I met with a producer who had read my Boston crime thriller, and he was saying that he had, you know, a cool sci-fi action project, had all these different actions, like a heist project, and he was trying to get somebody to write them, and I just didn't spark to them. But as we were leaving the restaurant, he said, well, we also just found the rights to this book. It's like The Talented Mr. Ripley. And I was like, I have to read this book. It was a modern thriller set in the Greek Isles that I'm working on today. Everything ended up working out all right. But if I hadn't told him my origin story about studying abroad in Italy, I never would have been able to land the job. It was just something at the end of the meeting, you share these things about yourself. He mentioned that he loved Talented Mr. Ripley going up. I told him that the Talented Mr. Ripley was the reason that I wanted to study abroad in Italy, that I was a huge spy fan, you know, growing up reading Le Carré and all of these great spy authors and espionage writing authors, and Patricia Highsmith. You know, I had read the book, loved the movie, and so I was able to go in, we made that connection, I read the book, went back, ended up pitching it to all the producers, pitching it to the author, and now it's the script that I am delivering this week, actually, and it's for the company that did the post, so I'm super excited about it. But at the end of the day, it all came about just just some trivial piece of information that was at the end of our meeting that ended up setting up my next job. So don't be afraid to share yourself and put yourself out there with passion and with energy about what you're interested in. So now we have this group of people. You've gone out, you've talked to these producers. and they are going to ask you what? What are you working on next? So you'll be able, now that you've been working on that second script, that third script, you're able to tell them, yes, I'm working on a script that's similar to the one that I wrote, but it's in this field. So for me, I had this script for The Gunsmith, and I really wanted to tell this New York firefighter story. So if you make a connection with a producer and you really seem like you're on the same page, I was able to pitch this story, you know, and when I'm pitching, I like to pitch the headline first. So I told him, like I told you guys, I wanted to do Top Gun, but with fire. And they say, oh, Top Gun, like, I love Top Gun. That sounds kind of cool. Like, well, how would you do it? And I told them about this New York Times article that I had read about the New York Fire Academy. And it had a skyscraper for fighting skyscraper fires. It had a subway set for fighting subway fires. It had a cargo ship set for fighting fires on the water. And in the article, it said, it's like a Hollywood backlot for aspiring firefighters. And now he leans in and he's like, that sounds like a movie. So when you're going out and you're pitching these producers, you want to tell them, you want to get them excited about your next project, have something that you can deliver in these cool sound bites. You know, you want to hit them with the headline, allow them to get excited about it, allow them to ask that next question, and then you hit them with a little bit more and they say, oh, that sounds cool. All right, well, what are the characters? All right, well, it's this coming of age story, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to be able to pitch these producers that next idea that you're working on. Maybe you have a script for it. It's better if it's something that you're working on or have finished already, but you start being able to talk about this material. And at the same time, at the end of the meeting, you're going to want to say, hey, what about you? Do you have any open writing assignment? An OWA is an open writing assignment. Do you have any OWAs that I would be a great fit for? Do you have any IP that you're working on? I would love to take a look at. You know, all of these things, by establishing this groundwork with this great script, you have the great manager, the great agent now, they know you can handle this type of material. It's going to open up the doors for you to get that next assignment. So as I said to you before, we're working on 3 scripts a year, at least. A question popped up about pitching TV versus film separately. Always pitch them separately, because the executives that you're going to be meeting with are either, in rarely they will handle both at certain companies where it's a smaller shop and they're handling both. But for the most part, especially on the studio side, you're going to have a feature film executive and you're going to have a TV executive. So feature film, you know, you can pitch ideas, you can pitch concepts, you can pitch IP. TV, the pitching process is long form. You know, you want to give them the world and the characters, and you're going to need to be able to talk about season 1 and ideas for season 2. So the pitch on the TV side, I have a pitch that I'm working on now, and my pitch document is 15, 20 pages of episode ideas, character bios, you know, different things for season 1, season 2. So that pitch process is a lot more exhaustive. So as we're starting to build to that, we have our network of producers who know our material and are excited about the next Matt Duffett script, right? So now we have to get back to work and write that cool next spec. As I was saying to you guys before, have a network of people that you can trust to read this and give you honest feedback. I'm in a writer's group in LA where we share scripts and everybody can talk openly and give you honest feedback. So it's great if your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your dad can read your stuff, but you also would love to have people who are in the industry or also are involved in some capacity where they can give you great feedback on these things and make sure you are writing something that these producers that you've blown away in your meetings are going to be excited about. So when you're working with your manager and your agent, with a manager, you get 1, sometimes 2 drafts. So by the time you send your script to your manager, you want it to be as polished as possible. With an agent, you get 1 draft. That's it. You can send them the script 1 time, and if they are not into it, it's not going out. You know, like, you want to have that script by the time it gets to the agent. You've had your group of friends, your writers group, you've had your manager sign off on it, and then you can bring it to your agent, because these are the people that are going to be selling you. So if your manager and agent aren't excited about this script, then it's going to be really hard for you to sell it to these producers. Which brings me to my next point. As you're starting to formulate these next scripts, it really helps to pitch them to people beforehand. I liken it to stand-up comedy, right? Where a stand-up comedian is going to practice his jokes before he goes onto his HBO special. So when I am starting a new project, I have an idea, I will beta test them with as many people as I can. I will say to them, hey, I'm starting to work on this new thing, and it comes across as very casual, but in fact, it's highly calibrated, where you say, I'm thinking of this new project. I don't know. It's kind of like Top Gun, but with firefighters. And they're like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And you're like, da-da-da-da, it takes place New York Fire Academy, Hollywood backlot for firefighters. And they're like, dude, that sounds awesome. Like, that sounds like a movie. How has that not been a movie? Then okay, this is something that I can write about, that I can potentially sell. So if you're not getting an ecstatic reaction, if you're not getting that lean in from your friends, 7, 8, 9 out of 10 friends, then it's probably not something you're going to want to put your energy and effort into. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people making as they're starting out is writing something just because they're interested in it, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong, like, you should definitely be interested in the things that you're writing about. But if you want to become a professional writer, a working screenwriter, it's about making money for your managers and agents. And you do that by writing something that you are able to get them excited about. So you need to test out these ideas. It's a high concept business. Whether it's a film, whether it's a TV series, you need to be telling people this idea, and they need to get so excited that they need to watch it right now. So you test it on your friends, you test it on your manager, you test it on your agent, you say, these are the things that I'm thinking about, you get them to sign off, and then you go ahead and you crush that script. You get 1 or 2 shots with your manager, he loves it, he's super excited, you send it to your agent, you get that one cosign from your agent, they're excited about it, and now we're off to the races. And now we have another piece of material that's going out to this group of producers that we have been building relationships with. You want to get to the point where you're on a personal relationship. And this is something that my manager has done for me, where I love it when he sets up these meetings or when my agent sets up the meetings. But you want to establish a rapport with these producers to where you can throw ideas at them, let them know what you're reading, what you're working on, so that they're saying, hey, like, I love that, would love to take you to lunch, right? We all love a free lunch, or hey, let's go grab drinks. Like, it's one of the perks of the business is like, hey, you're doing this thing, you bust your rear end for so long, like, it's nice being taken out to lunch. It's nice being taken out to drinks. And you do that by being a professional, by having these great scripts, by killing it in these meetings, by showing that you want this more than anybody else who's doing this right now, and by setting up those next projects, teasing the ideas that you want to work on, so that you're just continuing to build this buzz around your brand. All right, so that's Act 2, is we have that next idea ready to go out. We're going to send that idea out there. We have the script is going out, the script is going to sell. So now you have 2 projects that are in the works. Maybe one's been optioned, maybe one has sold, but the next stage of your career is going to be, where do we go from there? One of the biggest parts of the business that people don't really talk about is assignment work, rewrite work, pitching. I really want to talk to you guys before we sign off here about the best ways to handle these assignments, the best ways to pitch, because I spend just as much time pitching my ideas and writing pitch documents as I spend on screenplays today. So I'm going to grab some questions here, and then we can get into Act 3, which is getting that next sale. Keep the questions coming, guys. We're getting a lot of great questions. All right. Yes, Sox, Boston. Awesome. Kathleen Wentworth asked, getting ready to relocate to Atlanta and feel that will be closer to new frontiers of new studios. Does the Eastern Front change the complexion of the manager-agent hunt? Good question. I'm starting to notice a lot more that writers based in Atlanta and Austin and London, places around the globe with these burgeoning film communities, you can really find some work there. So Atlanta is a hotbed. Austin is a hotbed. You know, it really helps moving to Los Angeles. It is not for everyone. It is a tough town when things aren't going well, I guess I would say. But it's beautiful here. I would recommend to everyone, if you're serious about this, to move to LA, because you have that bump into you at Earth Cafe factor, or you take a boxing class or a soul cycle class with somebody, and it just makes it so much easier. It's just expanding your sphere of influence, really. And one of my first managers just came from a friend who liked my stuff and passed it along to some managers. So you can definitely find work in Atlanta. You can definitely meet some producers there. And I think that as opposed to being somewhere where there isn't a cool film community, I think Atlanta is a great option if that's what you are doing. And it's also a great place. I have a lot of friends who are on the production side, first ADs, second ADs, and it's a great place to get work on film sets, because a lot of people are moving to Atlanta to shoot something and then coming back to LA. So if you're in Atlanta, you can meet some people who are there who might be able to introduce you to a manager and agent. So definitely can work from Atlanta. Clint says, do certain contests get more attention than others? Yes, Austin, Nickel, the major contests are great. However, there's also something to be said about being a semifinalist or a finalist in a smaller contest. Like we said, it's all about that subject line on your email. And if you don't place in the Nickel, but you're able to come in as a semifinalist in one of these smaller contests, that's something you can use, So I would say to increase your odds by handling a variance of different contests. So hopefully that answers your question, Clint. Jeff says, in terms of voice, he's done drama, comedy, features, Hallmark. They've been recognized. Voice and style is everywhere and good at it all, but it seems to be a negative, not a positive. Well, I think it's great that you are able to write for all these different genres. But again, this is just my experience, that I would take whichever one you're best at, and I would pursue that and have 2 great drama scripts or 2 great Hallmark scripts. Because as we get to in Act 3, people are going to want to know you as something. And with all the competition out here, it's so much easier to get work if they know you as being able to nail that. If they spend X $1,000s on you to write a project, that you aren't going to let them down, because they know you can crush a heist film or a drama thriller or a comedy pilot or whatever it's going to be. They want to be able to depend on you. So there's nothing wrong with having all these elements. Look, like I grew up writing comedy. I love a great rom-com. All of these elements, I think people get confused sometimes about genre versus elements. All of my scripts have action, they have thrills, they have romance, they have comedy, because I think that those are all essential for a great film. Just because you like all of those elements doesn't mean that you should be writing all of those genres. I would say to take your love of those different types of things and make that part of your unique voice, Jeff, where you're taking your love of all these different disciplines and put them into whatever you do best. So that's great. Thank you so much for the great question. Let's see what else. Clint says, what level of contest is worth bragging about? Nickel, finalists and final draft, big break. Honestly, all of them. I think, hey man, if you're crushing it on a contest, you deserve some attention for that. And I think that regardless of how small the contest is, If you did well in it and they had a contest and they gave you a prize, awesome job. Awesome work. I think you should be able to lead with that. Yes, there are contests that open a lot more doors, but I think you, as you're starting out, and hey, when you win the nickel, you'll be able to use that too. But just use what you're working with right now. And if you did well in a smaller contest, use it. James Connor says, do you have any advice for reaching out to actors? James, that's difficult. It's really hard for working screenwriters to get it to actors. The best way is to be in LA, be in Atlanta, be in one of these towns, meet actors, and find somebody who's just about to break out. You know, find somebody who's on the cusp, or maybe they've had a couple guest episodes on an NBC show. Maybe it's somebody who's coming of age. Maybe it's somebody at USC Film School, but finding them before they break out and using them in your work. Another great piece of advice, people come to me and they're having trouble getting people to read a full script. Make something. It has never been easier to make something, especially in comedy. I don't know how many comedy writers we have out there, but if you are working in comedy, make a video, throw it up on Facebook, put it on Funny or Die, put it on YouTube, like just get it out there, Vimeo. Anything you can do where it is so much easier if you are going to put together a video, getting somebody to watch a 3-minute video, and my advice would be 3 minutes or under, regardless of how great you think your comedy video is, that is 29 minutes and 30 seconds. If you can make a comedy video that is under 3 minutes and it has laughs, it has 3 laughs a page and tells a story, and you get a sense of character and you get a sense of the world, that is gold. There are so many managers in LA that are willing to take on a client who shows not only the hustle to write a cool script, but to be able to go out, to get actors, to get a crew, to get a location. That shows how much you want this. And that's really what managers and agents want at the end of the day, is they want people who are willing to hustle and make their job easier. I try to make my managers and agents' jobs as easy as possible. So I try and do as much hustling as I can. On the drama side, it's a little harder to put together a short film, but again, people have done it. People have done really well in contests. People have done really well making that drama short. Again, I would keep it as short as possible, under 5 minutes. But if you can capture a mood, especially for a writer director, if you can capture a mood, the problem with doing drama shorts is usually the attention goes to the director. So that's why the drama scripts are really helpful. But still, if you can have a cool drama short and you have the script to go with it, even better. If you have this drama short that you shoot, that you love, and you have a 3-minute video, but you have a full-length script to go with it, aces. I think that that's great. Let's see what else here. Chaz says, one of my scripts was a semifinalist in multiple contests, but he doesn't realize I needed to take that. Okay, yeah, that's in 2016. I say use it. I say use it. I say, hey, my script placed in was a semifinalist in this contest. You don't need to, you're not lying if you don't say the year. So just say my script placed as this contest. Would love for you to check it out. So I think that that covers that. Kelly Crawford says, for verbal pitches, how do you feel about structure? Is it more important to start with the origin story or logline characters asking for a TV pilot? Okay, great. This is something that I have some experience with this week. I think for any pitch, the thing that I want you guys to think about most is why you? Why are you the only person who can tell this story? So when I open my TV series pitches, I want to hit them with, what is it? Like, what are we telling the story about here, right? So I want to give them the best description of that story, right? You know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, teen girl trying to get through high school while battling monsters, you know, from another world, and sometimes even worse, from her own world. So just having that idea with that high concept idea, you want to get them hooked. You want to get them to lean in and be like, oh, that's cool. I've never seen that before. You are never going to lose a room. You're never going to lose a meeting when people say, I've never heard that before. So I would say open with that thing that makes your story unique. And then I would jump into, so that would be like your log line, like your pitch. Maybe you give it some comps of what it's similar to in the marketplace. And then I would go into the characters. Characters make TV series. All of these stories, the concept is really important, but at the end of the day, the characters are why we keep coming back versus a feature pitch where the world and the concept itself is the most important. TV, we're coming back. Think of all the great shows that you watch. We're coming back for the characters. And then I would go into why you. I would go to your personal story, your reason for telling this, why it has to be you, why you're interested in this, why are you an expert? Because when you're talking about a TV series, you're talking about a multi-million-dollar enterprise. You know, people don't think of it that way, but when you are running a television show, which I hope all of you will be someday, you are running a multi-million-dollar corporation that has 100 employees. So they want to make sure that you know this place inside and out, and that when you get to season 2, episode 3, that you are not going to be scared by the moment, right? The moment is going to come when you're jammed up on story, you don't know what you're doing, but you're going to be able to draw on your personal experiences. You are such an expert in this field that you are going to be able to say, okay, I can handle this. Nothing is going to scare me here. And the executives will be able to tell that. Let's see. Martin says, do you spend time with your manager or agent? Sounds like they should become best buds, someone you totally trust and want to spend quality time with. Great question. Short answer so we can get into Act 3 is your manager should be your best friend. Your agent should be somebody who is looking out for your career, right? They're looking to get you paid. Your manager is looking to develop you as a writer. They're going to take the time. They're going to give you the page notes. Agents are going to give you the pie in the sky notes, like we need more of a female lead. We need more of the villain, or don't show the villain on page 1, hold it off until page 15. Or this is not working for X actor, you know, broaden the age range or change the age range so we can get The Rock, you know. So I would say that manager is somebody that you should connect with and be able to be on a personal basis with. Agent doesn't need to be that way. Agents have a bunch of clients. They're super driven. They're making 100 calls a day, so they don't have the time to develop you the way that a manager would. You just want an agent who's going to pick up the phone when you need them to pick up the phone and help you get a sale. All right, so with that, let's jump into to Act 3. Thank you so much, Brianna, for that. And so let's go into assignments and rewrites. By establishing your brand, as I've been telling you guys, producers will think of you when they have something that you can crush, right? So you're going in, you've established these relationships, you are blowing people away in the meetings, and they think, okay, I have this heist article from the Wall Street Journal. Matt is the guy that I'm thinking of for this. And you may be alone, they may send it to you, or you may be in competition with another 10 or 15 writers. So let's talk about getting that next job based off of the cool spec or 2 that you wrote. You've made relationships, your manager's super happy with you, your agent loves you, you're making them look great, and now you're moving on to that next step of your career. I just had a job that was based on a Blacklist script called Flashback. I had worked and had a great meeting with this German producer. She was looking for somebody to rewrite the script, and I was able to read the script and go in there. And when you're going in on these rewrite jobs or with some piece of IP, again, You want to show why you are the perfect person for this. And you want to open with the headline. And if it's an IP or a rewrite of an old script, this case was a blacklist script, you want to be able to compliment it and say, hey, this is great. I understand why you're interested in this. I love this about the story. I love this about the characters. But here are two problems I see in the second and third act, right? But we never want to present the problems. It's the executive's job to point out the problems. It's your job to give the solutions. So you want to go in there, you want to talk about what you love about the project, what you love about the characters, and then you want to be able to point out the 2 or 3 things that you can improve with this script, with this property, with this IP. A lot of times you'll get a book, and you're going to get a book for the Destroyers that was 750 pages. So they needed to know I was pitching against more seasoned writers. I was up against a lot of competition, but they wanted to know that I was going to be able to scalpel this 750-page book into a 110-page screenplay, and what I was going to be able to cut out of that story to make it an exciting, dramatic screenplay. So what you need to do is you need to be able to use a little bit of left brain and a little bit of right brain, where you're getting that creativity, but you're also able to figure out the math of the story, where you know where the act breaks are. You know what we need to introduce in each section to be able to keep the pace and be able to capture what everyone has loved about this book, this article, this script, but put it in a new, exciting, fresh spin. So that is one of the best ways to do it. Another way that you are going to, after you guys get out there and start meeting with some of these producers, you are going to pitch them verbally. And again, it's the same thing that we talked about when you are in these rooms with executives, where it's energy and passion sells. Like, people are going to be, if you're excited, you're going to get them excited. I think, I love doing this. I love what I do. And I hope that you guys can see that I love this, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hustle to be able to do this. So when you get your opportunity to shine, when you get the opportunity, the call to go to one of these studios to pitch on these things, you want to be the most passionate person about this project. So you know the characters, you know the story beats, you're able to speak eloquently about this story and why it would make a cool project. The next step sometimes is pitch documents. And I saw a cool chat come up there, a cool question come up about pitch documents. I wish I had known how much pitch documents play into the life of a writer, because it's a different skill set. It is much more of, it's about prose. It's the reason that we became screenwriters versus novel writers, or at least the reason that I became a screenwriter, because it's a lot more difficult for me to write prose than it is for me to write characters trading lines of dialogue. So something that I would suggest you guys work on just as a skill is take your favorite script and work on a 1 or 2 page pitch document, where this is a sales tool. So that if somebody didn't have a chance to read your 120, 110 page screenplay, they could get the essence of it in this pitch document, which to me would look like the title at the top. Then you would have the genre, you would have the log line. Then I would personally, my secret advice to, I've been fortunate enough to sell a few of these things, is my take. I call it my take, and you guys are willing to use that and open to use that, is why I am a fan of this material and why I am an expert in this field. If it's a heist movie, you want to talk about the heist movies that you grew up loving, and you want to talk about how you love, this genre. And if it's a story about a father and a son pulling off a great heist, you want to talk about your relationship with your father and how you had this bond. And maybe it was a fractured bond, maybe you were best friends, but whatever it is in the story, you want to be able to talk about how you bring a unique perspective to this material. So you want to have this personal take, and then you want to be able to write in broad strokes about the story itself. You want to be able to say, okay, this is what happens in Act 1. And the more white space, the better. It's just like with a script. You want it to look clean. You want it to look professional, where you're going to be able to see title, logline, my take, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, so that somebody who's looking at this says, oh, all right, I know exactly where I am in the story. I know exactly who the main characters are, and I'm able to follow the hero's journey all the way through this. I see where the midpoint twist is. You're able to see all of these things cleanly and plainly on the page, because this is going to be passed along. And I'll end with my story of working with Sylvester Stallone, where all of these different things that I've been talking about have come into play. So I was very fortunate in my career to get some success with The Gunsmith, and I was able to work with these producers on another project, and they had a script that had been kicking around for a little while, and it had Sylvester Stallone attached to star in and direct. And I grew up watching the Rocky movies with my dad. I am a huge Stallone fan, and so I was ecstatic. And so they sent me the script. I read the script 3 times probably in 24 hours. I was just obsessed with it, and I wanted to make sure that of all the writers going in there, I knew the material inside and out, so that if they wanted to talk about the hero and when he meets the villain for the first time, I'd be like, okay, that was on page 35, which is the same exact point in this movie that was like that this character came into play. Same thing on the Destroyers. Like when I was working on that with the talent, they wanted to do the new Talented Mr. Ripley. I knew exactly the point when Freddie Miles came into the script. He comes in at minute 55 and he changes the pace. So you want to know this material inside and out. So they send me this script. I love the script. I think that I can do something with it. I have a lot of ideas about the story, but I also understand that Stallone, if he wants to star in this thing and direct it, I need to make sure that this is a character that he is going to want to play. I mean, he has played some of the most iconic on-screen characters in the history of cinema for decades. He has been a superstar for decades, built around these iconic characters. Rocky, Rambo, we all know his filmography, and I wanted to make sure that we could put this character in the pantheon of great Stallone performances. So they know my work from my other scripts. I have a relationship with these producers. They send me the script. I love the script, and I go in and I pitch to this room full of executives. I do my best to be passionate. I talk about the problems in the script, how I want to fix them, and I leave it all in the room. I do everything I can to get the job, and I get the call, and they say, everybody loved your take, but Stallone wants to see what it looks like. He's busy working on another project. Could you put together a pitch document? I'm like, no problem. Absolutely. So now I have to take this 20-minute pitch that I have worked on and obsessed on, and now I have to boil this thing down into 2 pages so that Stallone can read it. Now, Stallone, I don't know if he's read my material at that point. I don't know if his agent has read my material. So this thing needs to be the best document that I've ever written. So I put all of my passion and all of my creativity and everything I want for his character, and I follow his journey on this pitch document. The pitch document then goes off to his agent. Stallone checks it out. The agent checks it out, and so we have a call. So now we talk about the journey of the working writer from script to pitch to call. I feel like I'm on the goal line, and now I'm on the phone with all of the producers. There's like 10 people on the call. I get on the call, and he's asking me questions about the character. And this is where it comes back to. You have to be the expert on this material. You have to be able to say that I know exactly what you're going to do. So when a producer asks you something, you're going to have the answer. When Stallone asks you something, you are going to have an answer for him, because if you don't have that answer, he can say no at any time, right? So you have that answer. I'm able to answer all these questions. I beat out all these other writers, and I end up getting this job. So now it's my turn to go off and write. I write the script. I am really happy with it. I send it to my manager, send it to my agent. Everybody's really happy with it. I send it to the producers. The producers enjoy it. They send it off to Stallone and his agent over the weekend. I've never been more nervous. I don't think I slept all weekend just waiting for that response. And that's what it's about. It's just waiting to get that response to the material, but knowing that you did everything you could. I shared the script with everybody in my inner circle to make sure that this script was the best thing that I've ever written. And I get the call that Stallone likes the script and he wants me to come to his house. So I'm losing my mind. I end up getting the call. I go up to his house. We set the meeting. We walk in. I go to Stallone's house. It is this amazing house, everything you'd want it to be. He ends up being the absolute nicest guy in the world. Couldn't have been nicer to me. Couldn't have been more complimentary to me. And what I found so fascinating that I hope I've been able to talk about here is that Stallone has been doing this forever. He's been working on his craft for as long as possible, and still he knows the marketplace. He is reading what's going on out there. He knows exactly what he wants to do, and he says, I really like your script, but we need more of a hook. We need something that is going to break through the clutter, just like I've emphasized to you guys with your emails, just like I've emphasized to you guys with the meetings, the pitches. Everything is about standing out and just breaking through the clutter. It's like we need a little bit more of a hook. So we talk, we throw around ideas, talking about the character, talking about the story, and we agree on something. We go, okay, great, this is going to work. We have a cool story. We have this great hook. We're going to infuse into the story that gives us something that is going to pop when you see the trailer, when you see the film. It's something people are going to be talking about. He thanks me for my time, thanks me for coming up. We shake hands, and as we're leaving, what's the one question that he asked me? What are you working on next? And that's it, guys. That's Act 3. I'll take 1 or 2 more questions here. I think we are just about up on time, but it's really just about what are you working on next? You know, when you get that opportunity, you really need to be sure that you are ready to deliver. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll take 1 or 2 more questions here, but be ready. Be ready, because all of you guys are going to get the call that they want to check out your script, that they want to buy your script. What are you working on next? What are you working on next that is going to help develop your career as a professional working writer? Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully you were able to track the journey. Let me take 1 or 2 more questions here. Let's see. Barbara says, bump into front, my 9-year-old son got a new big brother, showrunner of a successful comedy. I have a script that is doing well. Is there a way to broach this? Ooh, that is tough. That is a tough question. I think that the question is if it's organic, if it's natural, you know, you don't want to overstep the bounds, but I think if it comes up in a natural way, for instance, if you are working with the big brother long enough, if it's over the course of 3 months, 6 months, eventually it's going to come around to what you do. And when you tell him, I'm a writer, he is naturally going to say, oh, that's really cool. What are you working on? And you're going to say, oh, I'm working on this comedy. It's done pretty well in these contests. And he's going to say, that's funny. I work on comedy. I don't know if you know this, but I run this successful sitcom. Then you'll be able to say, oh, that's really cool. And he will say to you, well, you've been awesome. You know, the relationship with your son has been great. I would love to check out your material. You send it to him. Somebody on his team is going to check it out, and you never know. But when it's a personal relationship, especially, you know, one like that, I would say to just wait for it to be organic and wait for it to come from him. And then once the question comes, you're able to deliver. So that's cool there. Let's see. Douglas says he couldn't get in. What script review services to impress producers and managers? And do you ever stand up? Oh, Douglas, awesome question. It depends. It depends. When I first started, I started standing up, and it's tough because you are moving around the room, and sometimes you can get a little bit too excited, and your energy can be conveyed as nerves. So I think it's personal, where are you able to stand, and maybe you have some visuals that you're able to gesture to, but in most of the pitches that I do now, it's super conversational, where I'm sitting at the desk and I'm just able to keep it a conversation. Some of the best pitches feel like they're involved. They want to feel like they're additive, and they want to feel like they are involved in the story and helping you collaborate on this together. And I think it works best when, instead of talking down to them, we're here just engaging like you and I are now, where we're able to just throw some ideas back and forth and keep it casual, because it's best when it feels natural and feels organic, as opposed to just talking on and on and on about this story that you want to tell, and getting people to punch in with questions, just as we've done today. So thank you for the question, Douglas. CC, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate you joining us today. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
This was awesome. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Brianna.
much. Yeah, your passion is infectious. I'm over here like, everyone do everything. We can do it.
That's great. I appreciate it. Yeah, this was really fun, guys, and awesome questions. I honestly could not have asked for better questions. You guys were all really cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Feel free to reach out to me. It's just my name, Matt Duffett, on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I appreciate all the great feedback, and this was great. Let's do it again sometime soon.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Brianna.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
everybody.